Welcome to What's in the Box episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna,
And I'm Eric.
and I'm going to share my screen. And
So
today
we
we
got a
are,
doozy.
yeah, a doozy, Howling to the movie. On one of our our most recent episode, we did the book by Gary Bradner. So we decided to go ahead and do the movie as well.
It's
And,
terrible.
yeah, it is. It is
Even
very
at its
terrible.
at its best, the best we could say is it's terrible. And we say that, but at least I mean there's stuff to talk about. So, but overall, I thought, man, this is this is shocking that this is the second one. I would assume this was like the seventh one, like they had
Yeah.
given up. You
Yep.
hear that?
I
That
do.
was
I was just gonna say, girls running.
probably trying to find more muffins. So
That's right.
barreling through.
Yeah.
But so here's an interesting thing. Um, and they didn't use it, but the guy that wrote the Howling series, it wrote the screenplay for the second one.
Yeah, I saw
Uh,
that on the credits.
and then he had to leave, and then they just basically threw everything away that he did.
Oh
And
boy.
they used a script from another guy, and the script they used from the other guy, which I can't remember his name off the top of my head, was a vampire script. And then as soon as I read that, this movie makes total sense
Yeah, it does.
because it doesn't make any sense as a werewolf movie.
Mm-mm.
Totally understand everything going on now when you look at it through the lens of if these people were vampires. The magic makes sense. The
Yep.
sacrificing makes sense. The living forever kind of thing storyline they had going on. The old
The
lady
stake through the
absorbing,
heart.
right? The old lady taking the energy from people so that she can be young again.
hmm
All that makes sense now that we know that this isn't even written as a werewolf movie. What's funny is that what's the guy's name that wrote the Howling books?
Gary Bradner.
Hated the first movie. I mean, hated it to the point where he has a scene where it opens and they name like a dog Dante, and the dog gets killed by a werewolf or something, and that's supposed to be in reference to how much he hates what the director of the first Howling did and how disrespectful he was to him. When he said that we threw the book out and we went and did our own idea. And so I thought that was really funny that guy worked really hard to write a script to kind of put his name back under the franchise, and then they immediately abandoned it when he walks away,
Yeah.
steps away. So that right there is an amazing little point, I think. That kind of shows you the train wreck this movie is.
Yeah.
It's just how all over the place it is.
Yeah. I saw one little tiny similarity um to the book and the movie. Do you remember in the book where towards the end, um, Marcia was like to, what was her name? Audrey, the girlfriend of Chris,
Yeah.
said, "Hey, tell Karen to go to the gypsy."
Oh, yeah. And then later, the
Yeah,
boyfriend tells the gypsy, "We got, I'll meet you at the gypsies or whatever."
yeah.
Yeah. So the
So,
incorporation of the gypsies. Yeah, that is a
yeah,
good point.
yeah. So in the movie, when Ben goes off to get Karen or to get Jenny a present, the hotel dude, the nephew, was like, "Oh, he wanted me to take you to the gypsies." So I was like, "Oh, that's one little kind of like, the subterfuge because that that's not true because he went to go get her a present or whatever." So I just thought that was a funny little tidbit. I'm like, okay, that's
Yeah, I
kind.
thought they did two good things tying them together, which I didn't expect. The fact that they had Karen in the beginning of the movie. So the title of the movie is Your Sister is a Werewolf, isn't that what it
Yeah,
is?
yeah,
So I think that is in reference twice. So it's in reference to Ben, his sister being a werewolf, even though he doesn't believe that.
right.
And then also they keep saying that Stefan and the main werewolf
Steerba.
are related, brother and
Yeah,
sister. So maybe that's where they're coming from. From what I understand, the title is supposed to be something about somebody's being a bitch but in the US, you couldn't use bitch in the title of the movie.
right.
So that's why they did the sister as a werewolf. That's how they came up with that. But because I've seen it before, it's like Serbian bitch or something like that. I've seen it on some of the posters from the European stuff. But yeah, so they did a good job of initially tying the first two movies together, which I didn't think they would do at all
Right.
when we started watching it. And especially not to the, of course they didn't do anything like they do in the books. And the one and two are a much better pairing as the books.
Right.
But I was shocked, like you said. I mean, the fact there are some small similarities, and the fact that I didn't know what they were going to do with Karen. I didn't know how they were going to tie her into it at all. I thought that was an interesting idea to have. Although, again, now it shows us the werewolf or the vampire thing. She was killed, silver bullet dead,
Yeah.
and then she's coming back alive as she turns into a werewolf in the
In the
coffin.
coffin. Yeah.
And that makes sense if this was a vampire movie.
It does. Yeah.
So I don't know. How did this get past anybody? I mean, this really shows you that when it comes down to producers that just care about the bottom line, all they cared about was the bottom line. And they didn't
Yeah.
care if the movie made any sense. They just wanted it to make money, which I don't know how they thought it was going to make money unless
Yeah. I
they already
don't
had
either.
something set up. Maybe they had some pre-sales or something that they knew would equal out whatever the cost was, and then they were just hoping after that. And what was I going to say? I think if I remember correctly, I read somewhere that the author and some other guy had the rights to Howling too. So the studio couldn't just continue on. So I mean they're the reason the second movie was made.
Right.
And they hated what happened with the first movie. They weren't going to allow, that guy wasn't going to allow anybody to touch his movie, I don't think.
Yeah. Which is funny because I thought the first one was much better than this one.
Yeah, I think the writer though was offended because Dante would go around saying that they perfected the story and they
Uh,
basically threw the book out the window and just did it themselves. So
yeah.
Dante is always known for saying that his Howling is way better than the book is. And so of course the writer's got an ego and he doesn't want to hear that. So
Mm,
funny
yeah.
side note, Christopher Lee was on a character, or he played a character in Gremlins 2, directed by Dante. He apologized for appearing in Howling 2, because Dante did the first Howling. So he said he was sorry for being in such a crappy movie that was taking away from the Howling, I guess, namesake or whatever. I thought that was a funny thing.
Yeah. And I don't know. I hadn't seen this movie in quite a long time. Um, and I just was like, has it always been this bad?
Yeah, the acting's terrible.
The
The
acting is
story's
terrible. The
terrible.
story's
This
terrible.
the special effects are decent, but they're not anything special.
Yeah.
And did you know that most of the werewolf costumes are actually Planet of the Ape costumes?
They looked more ape-like to me.
Yeah, well,
So,
I read a little thing today trying to find some interesting notes, and apparently, when they arrived in Serbia or wherever they filmed this, somewhere over, it was in a Soviet-controlled area. I know that much because there's some interesting stories about that. So it was in a Soviet-controlled Eastern Europe country, and the boxes showed up marked Planet of the Apes. So when they opened them, they were all ape costumes. And the guy's like, I can't do anything with this. And then I guess Christopher Lee suggested, well, we'll just, you could say they're evolving, and that's why they look more this way than they did in the past or whatever. So I think they kind of leaned into that. But yeah,
yeah.
they don't look great. They look they look very, like you said, apish and stuff. So, I mean, that takes away from it there too.
Yeah. It was just it was especially in the scenes where it was like they were half turned, especially during
Mm,
the threesome scene with Stirba and Mariana and Vlad, I think his name is.
yeah.
They were like half turned. And what really threw me is they were trying too much to act like wolves that it came off comedic to me. And they had a lot of like weird hand motions, especially like Stirba, which,
Yeah.
do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
You
I
know
know
what I'm
exactly
talking.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very creepy. And what I was going to say, I read the director actually directed it to be a comedy with horror elements, and the producers took his movie because he's already moved on to his next movie, and then they recut it to be horror with comedy elements. Problem is they didn't tape enough of the horror part. And there's too many funny things going on too. It was very tongue in cheek. It's almost like Texas Chainsaw 2. You know, when they got him to do Texas Chainsaw 2, they wanted a straight up horror movie, and he didn't want to do that. He did more of a commentary on the time, and he wanted it to be funny. And and it is funny. It's a very funny movie, but it's not what the studio wanted. The difference is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is good, and Howling 2 is terrible. I'm not even sure what we would get if we saw a director's cut, because I can't imagine this being, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just everything about it was like, ugh.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
somehow got Christopher Lee. That's so it almost freezes my brain. I don't understand how Christopher. I read that he accepted it because he'd never done a werewolf picture, and again, and that makes me want to go back and go, what is Hammer doing?
Yeah.
I mean, they only really put out the one werewolf movie that with Oliver Reed, which is one of my favorite werewolf
Hmm.
movies. But still, I mean, you have Cushing, you have Lee, and you don't put them together in some sort of werewolf package. That blows my mind. That bothers me.
Yeah.
And so I get why he did it, but I mean, how there's no way he read that script and thought this is a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have him as Stefan, who is the supposed brother of the lead werewolf woman. Um, and I was confused about
Oh,
the
thank God.
the relationship between
Thank
Ben and
God. I'm glad you
Jenny.
said that. Yes, because I had no clue. Like halfway through, I thought, oh, well, I thought they were like either just good friends or
Well,
cousins or something,
I
and
thought,
then all of a sudden they're making out. I'm like, I hope
yeah,
that's not the case.
yeah. So I was confused because at the funeral for Karen, they were almost like strangers.
Yeah.
Because she
Okay. Yeah,
was
I could
like,
see that too.
"Excuse me, what was on that card? Who was that person?" And then she like ran away. But then they're like together, and I'm like, "Okay, were they like coworkers?" But then I guess she worked with Karen, apparently. I was just really confused about that whole relationship. Just like
Yeah, it was
super
very odd. And I
confused.
watched the first 30, 40 minutes before we did scares, so it's been a couple weeks, and I
Yeah.
dove back into it today to finish it off. And so I imagine my surprise when all of a sudden they're like making out in the hotel room. And I was like, well, that took a jump. I don't remember the jump. Where was the jump?
Yeah,
All of
what
a sudden
what
they're
happened?
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got the same vibe. Ben is interesting because he was in some really cool B movies. He's Captain America from the 70s when they did the two TV movies for Captain America. I think that's
Oh,
pretty
okay.
cool. He's terrible as an actor in this movie. I would like to revisit the Captain America. He is also Yor, who is it was a movie that came out in the 80s, early 80s, where he's like a barbarian. It's like a barbarian sci-fi laser extravaganza. And I can't remember if he's a time traveler or if they come to him, but I do remember I remember seeing it in the theater with my dad. So it's one of those movies, but it is also a terrible movie. But I was shocked to find out that this guy is the dude from all those. Cause when I saw him in this movie, I thought, oh, this guy never did anything again.
Yeah.
He felt like a very cheap knockoff of Flash Gordon, you know?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like maybe he was an athlete and then he got to be in a movie and then he just disappeared forever. But apparently he's been in a ton of stuff in the 70s and 80s. So, but
Yeah.
I thought he was god awful in this movie. I
Yeah,
couldn't
and
really.
she was actually in Beetlejuice.
Yeah, she's the lady that pulls up when that's selling the house.
Okay, because
She's the
I'm
one that's
like,
always trying to sell the house from under no.
yeah, that's why, because I couldn't place her when I saw that. I was like, I can't off the top of my head, and I've seen Beetlejuice 100 times. I'm like, I don't know what show
I
she
only knew
was.
it because I saw pictures, so I knew exactly who she was. As soon as I
Yeah,
saw the picture, I go, "Oh yeah, that's that lady." She
yeah,
doesn't stand out in either one, but she's kind of bad in this one. I don't know. She doesn't come across as what she's playing.
yeah. And then we have our bad guys here. We have the head lady here, Stirba. I don't know what's up with that outfit. Like they're in like Transylvania or something, and she's
Again,
wearing this.
but it fits if she was a vampire, right? It's
Yeah,
like a vampire queen armor. Didn't
yeah,
make sense as a werewolf. None of
yeah,
this made sense. And I mean, even the names, Vlad. I mean,
yeah,
all the names are Eastern European country names.
Yeah.
This all feels like I'd love to see it. I'd love to see that script reshot, make everybody vampires, and I bet you the movie's at least decent.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun fact, I was looking at the cast today online, and the woman who played Mariana, Marsha Hunt, actually has the same birthday as me,
Oh, that's cool.
although she was born in 1946. But I'm like, oh, interesting. She has the same birthday as me.
Huh.
Um,
I
yeah,
wouldn't have guessed she was 40 in this movie.
yeah,
Or almost
yeah,
50. I guess it was done in 85. So
yeah, yeah. She was born in 1946. Um, but yeah, I thought I have to admit, I like the punk band that was in
that was
it.
gonna say that was the best part, the song that the
Yeah,
band kept playing. I thought that was my favorite part of the whole movie.
yeah, and that whole orgy scene in the, I'll call it a castle, wherever she
Yeah.
lived, like, was the band there?
Yeah, I guess so. I thought, well, this is probably the weirdest gig these people have had.
Yeah, and then you have like the orgy going on, and then you have those old guys dressed up like aristocrats from like the 1800s in their wigs and stuff sitting at the table. So I was like, what is actually going on here?
Yep. And then as you describe it, I just keep thinking of like Twilight or any like established vampire story that had a, that has Eric, a level of rulership. This is what we're
Yeah,
seeing here. So it just made me think of all that, but it didn't make any sense when you're watching it.
yeah, and there was
And
just
so,
boobs everywhere.
yes,
Like,
this movie, well, very European. I read a thing saying that they were leaning into this. I guess the 80s must have been a period of time where there was a lot of like some sort of sexual revolution, another sexual revolution from the 70s repeating itself in the mid 80s.
hmm,
I don't know if it was a European thing. I don't know if it was just in cinema, but they were trying to capture that vibe, it said. But I was like, so the guy's trying to make a comedy. He's trying to do some sort of weird sexual revolution thing and make a werewolf vampire hybrid movie or something. So he had a lot on his plate. So it makes
yeah,
sense that this movie sucks.
yeah.
So,
And I watched, so I finished it last night. Um, and I'm watching as the end credits or whatever, and like 100 times they showed the scene where Stirba rips her top
this is
off.
hilarious. These are all the talking points in my head. So I read that too. She's a notorious B movie star who is known for being topless in her movies. But she had by this point got some clout. So in her contract, she agreed to do it one time. So she does that one time. And then the producer said, hey, why don't we just put it in the end of the movie 19 times?
Yeah,
Well, he didn't pick a time. He told the director, hey, we're going to do it a couple times at the end of the movie. The director
yeah,
goes, oh, that's perfect, couple times. And then they did it 19 times they do it. And
yeah,
so she was very upset from what I read because that's not what she, and it doesn't make any sense because it's from the side and she's just ripping her top off, but it
yeah,
doesn't fit into anything they're showing you. So
yeah,
it's just 100% gratuitous.
yep,
So yeah, I thought it was the funniest thing too. But then you read it, and you're like, okay, I get it.
yeah,
So
yeah. Because it was kind of cool the way they did the ending, where you got some flashbacks to like previous scenes and stuff. But then like every like third scene, it was her ripping her top off. And it was like her
yeah,
ripping her top off. And I'm like, okay, we get it. She's got boobs.
yeah, I know, right? And I guess, and I was like, you know what? I know I'm probably supposed to know who she is by just seeing her, but I don't. So I'm sure she's in a ton of movies where she does that all the time. So
Yeah. This is the only movie I can recognize her from.
yeah, I didn't
So,
recognize anybody, but I mean, I didn't recognize Ben. I looked it up and then saw that he was in these great movies. I thought, oh, well, he's in all these. Oh, he's in Sword and Sorcerer too. It's like
oh,
he's in
wow.
all these cult classic movies from the early '80s and late '70s. But I'm like, God, he just wasn't very good in this. And it's
Yeah.
it's his range of emotion in this one. His emotion was one. He had one emotion of just screaming at people, anger, but it wasn't like I don't know. It wasn't even convincing anger.
Yeah. I'm
Uh,
just wondering about the guy who did um the Vlad guy. I'm wondering what else he's been in. Let's see
Yeah, I
if I
didn't look
can.
him up. He wasn't very impressive. I thought he
No,
was kind
he,
of hokey too.
yeah.
I don't know. And then the very beginning, how everything was so punky. like it was leaning into it was funny though, because it felt like, didn't it feel like it was 6 years too late to be having so much of that scene going on
Yeah.
if it was really in 85?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so he was in Dune, 1984.
all right, well, that's
He was in Red Dawn.
okay. I have to relook at that because he obviously was terrible in this, but no, I
Yeah.
love both of those movies.
And he was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Who was he in Pee Wee's?
Let's see. I don't know if I can see that. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. See, I'm on IMDb. I don't usually go to this. I couldn't find a Wikipedia page for this guy. So the cast. He was Mickey, whoever that is. I don't, it's been so long since I've seen that movie.
Right.
Um,
I'm sure somebody's screaming at us right now.
yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, everybody knows who Mickey is. Idiots.
Yeah, right.
But
All I can remember is Large Marge.
right. Well, I was thinking, he's obviously not the villain, the guy that steals the bike, but
Yeah.
he could have been and the lady that tells. I was thinking he was either one of the people in San Antonio when he's looking for the Alamo,
Yeah.
and or he was one of the people in the area when he's trying to get the neighborhood watch together to try and figure out what happened.
Yeah, he was also in Acapulco Heat.
Oh, there we go. That
Yeah.
sounds interesting. I'll revisit. I'll have to look at him again. I was so I don't know, dismissive of this movie. I didn't pay much attention to Vlad because he didn't have a very I don't want to say important because I'm sure it was important to the role, but
Yeah, I
it
know
just
what you're trying
everything
to say.
about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's everything about it was dismissive. I just, you
Yeah,
know,
he was like a almost like a secondary, like,
he was just there kind of thing.
yeah.
Just anybody could have played that part. He was, there to, I guess, hump a werewolf or something. But
Yeah.
I thought,
Yeah.
wasn't that also the weird thing that instead of silver, it was titanium?
Yeah.
There's always the knives and the axe, and then they had a lot of the spells and the holy water and all that stuff. So as I keep saying it, but
Yeah.
yeah, you go back to it being a vampire movie, more of that made sense. I mean, at one
Yeah.
point she pulled up garlic and held up a bunch of garlic and said for good, she wanted to put it in the room for good vibes or whatever.
Ward away evil spirits or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that's not how that works with werewolves. That's not
Yeah.
how any of this works. So
Yeah.
again, this way it blows my mind this movie is done.
Mm.
Comes out and apparently did well enough that they greenlit a third one. And gave the same director the third movie. It just
Yeah.
blows my mind because they totally recut it to do what they wanted it to do. So they didn't. It's not like they enjoyed the vision of that director. So they must have got him for pennies.
Yeah. The one thing that, I had said I hadn't seen this movie in quite a long time. And two things I've always remembered about this movie. Stirba's hair, because she's got some impressive 80s hair going on. And the dwarf or little person, Vasil.
That might have been the best part.
Yeah, I think he creeped me out so much with his mask that he was
Mm-hmm.
wearing, and then what happened to him after he lost his blessed earplugs. Um,
And the dubbed voice they used because that was obviously something different.
yeah. So thinking about this, I couldn't really recall details of the movie. I knew there was a black werewolf, but I always remembered Stirba's hair, and I remembered the Vasil. Because I remember I saw this movie, I was young,
Mm-hmm.
and that character like just really creeped me out when I had seen this movie for the first time.
Yeah, I had to have seen this 15 or younger. There's
Yeah.
no way. There's no way a 15-year-old saw this movie and thought this was good.
Yeah. Oh, I was definitely not even a teenager when I saw
Right.
this for the
So I'm
first time.
thinking, I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. It came out, if it says it came out in 85, there's no way I waited till after 90 to see it. Only other
Yeah.
thing I think of is I started it, never finished it, but that doesn't sound right either. Because when I was younger, I would finish just about anything. I have a high tolerance for terrible movies. In fact, I embrace most terrible movies
Mm,
and look for the good in everything. because I know how difficult it is to make a movie. And then you read the horror stories that they went through. Like I said, he directed it to be one kind of thing, and then the producers recut it. There's a lot of things that go into a movie being terrible,
Mm,
but almost 98% of this movie is terrible just as is. There's, you know what I mean? It's like there's no fixing this.
yeah.
So
I thought it was cool how the priest got killed towards the end with the bat from her staff.
yeah,
I
that
thought
was
that was
weird
a
too.
I thought that was a pretty cool kill.
Yeah, it was a cool kill.
Huh.
But it again stands out because it's not a werewolf thing, you know. As soon as, but it's like a vampire bat thing. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, that makes more sense now that I know that. But I was thinking, why? Because for the last third of the movie, she's casting spells, she's shooting energy out of herself, she's controlling bat monster demon things to attack people. I was like, man, this is really all over the place. I could not figure out why the werewolves themselves. I mean, it doesn't match up to any kind of werewolf lore that we've had in the past or
Yeah,
anything. I
and
mean,
she
it
didn't
was
even fight as a werewolf. The
never
only time she was
changed.
the only time she changed was when she was having a threesome.
Right. And it wasn't a full change,
It wasn't a full
and
change.
I maybe that's because they didn't have the proper costumes. They didn't
Mm,
want to get too close. But
yeah.
I like the werewolves in the woods when they were getting attacked by all of them.
Yep.
But none of that made sense because they didn't have silver bullets and none of the weapons were anything special. I mean, I guess they were titanium, which I don't get why that's important. And
Yeah.
then,
And
yeah, all of it was kind of weird. And also, okay, this is the thing that stood out too. When Christopher Lee is about to drive the stake through Karen's heart, and Ben says, "What are you doing? Stop!" And he stops, and then she starts to turn into a werewolf. And then they just put the lid back on the coffin
yeah.
and then leave. I was still trying to figure out did they end up killing her? Did they stop her from being a werewolf, or is she just a werewolf trapped in a coffin?
Yeah, and then after they fought off or they killed that old guy, they left and it showed Karen in the coffin as a human.
So she reverts back. Is it well? That doesn't make sense though, because he still didn't kill her.
Yeah,
So why
because
would
you
she
you
revert
heard
back?
the stake fall
Hmm.
to the ground because it got knocked out of his hand.
Yeah. So I just don't understand what's going on with Karen. And then they never talk about it again.
Yeah,
And then Ben and Jenny, what's her name?
Jenny.
Jenny.
Yeah.
They team up with Christopher Lee and fly to Eastern Europe to fight, the master race of werewolves or however they want to word it. And I was just like, but your sister is just sitting in a coffin. They haven't even. I mean, I guess was she going to be put in a what is it,
Mausoleum, yeah.
mausoleum or buried underground? Because they were at a gravesite at the beginning. They were at a gravesite to put her in the ground. So did somebody
Yeah.
dig her back up? None of that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's how you start. That's how the movie starts. So then you're like,
Yeah.
what is going on
What? I don't understand. And the werewolves, how Stefan was like, oh, they won't let one of their brethren or whatever be buried on consecrated ground. But the werewolves didn't fight very hard to get Karen.
here? Yeah, yeah.
And
And
like Mariana didn't even fight. Like she kind of just hung out in the back while the old guy got killed.
I mean, we go back to the first movie. She was shot with a silver bullet. She's dead.
Mm,
I mean, that was the whole point. It's the guy. What was the guy's name? The guy that's in the second book.
Chris.
Chris. Remember, he has the bullet and he has to shoot her when she starts changing on film on camera, and
Yeah.
then everybody in the audience sees it. Then they act like nobody saw it in the second movie. It's like everybody was watching. Well, they didn't get to DVR it because of back then, but they still saw it. All that area. It was in
Mom, the
L.A.
lady's turning into a werewolf on the news.
Right, and then she gets shot by the silver bullet. So there shouldn't have been a comeback anyway. So again, hats off to the guy who snuck his script in and got
Mm.
it changed enough, so that it could be made into a movie. Because apparently he only made 2 movies total,
Oh,
but
well.
he's got the second one in this one. I
Yeah.
included this picture just because it happens early in the movie, and this is how he tries to blend in. They
Yeah.
put these glasses on us. Well, he had to have been in the 60s easily, 70s, and
So
he's
who is this?
That's Christopher Lee.
Oh, that's Christopher Lee. Oh,
That's at the very beginning when they're doing that punk concert
yeah,
and those three punk guys get lured away and then they get eaten by the werewolves.
yeah.
Christopher Lee is hunting through the crowd or whatever. He takes those glasses off of one of the punks and puts it
Oh,
on.
I didn't even realize that.
And well, that's because this movie's so terrible that there's no reason to think about it. But yeah, I said, well, that's, and he thought he was perfectly disguised with those glasses. And I thought this is when this is how it kind of started. I thought, well, it's all downhill from here. I'm going
Yeah,
to have to take off my, serious thinking cap and just watch this as it is. So,
yeah. And it's funny how they were interrogating the old man werewolf at Karen's grave. Where's Stirba? Where's Stirba? And then he's like the dark country. And then boom, all of a sudden, Stefan knows exactly where in Transylvania that Stirba is. Like, I've never been to Transylvania and I suck at geography, but I'm assuming Transylvania is a decent sized country. So,
I have a feeling. I have a feeling it's probably more like Pennsylvania sized.
oh,
I
but I'm
don't
like,
think it's too huge, but
yeah,
she's still a
it's
werewolf that's supposed to be hidden somewhere.
yeah, but he knew, oh, the dark country. I know exactly what town to go to.
I wonder if it's one of those cases where there's like three places to go to and everything else is just woods or something.
Maybe.
Or maybe they
Oh,
just hope that American audiences and Western audiences were just too dumb and they would just be like, oh, not question it. They probably never expected you to actually think, well, how do you know where that is?
yeah, and maybe they're expecting us to think that Transylvania is nothing but Transylvania, that there's
Yeah.
not towns and cities within the country of Transylvania, because that's where Dracula's from,
Yeah.
you know.
And then, I mean, we've seen Transylvania, was it 65,000? And
Uh-huh.
that had, that only really had one town. And I guess, depending on, I mean, Universal Monsters, they like to put a lot of stuff in that kind of area. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be interesting. Maybe we should use this movie as the springboard, but we still have a couple more to read. So,
Yeah.
I was like, maybe we could springboard directly into Dracula, but I know we still have a couple more werewolf books to read before we do that.
Yep.
I Unfortunately, I'm thinking there won't be any movie tied into the last couple we have.
No, no, I don't think so.
So, unless there's something loosely we don't know about, but we'll figure that out, I guess, as we read it.
Yeah.
So we will have like two more reads and a special project that we will soon be releasing information about, and then we'll be in the classics, and then we'll start a whole list of those too. So that'll be fun. I'm actually interested in deep
Yeah.
diving some of the classics. Some of them I've read a number of times. Some of them I've only glanced at. So. All right. Since we did Scares That Cares this last weekend, we're going to do a two-shot for the Not Stephen King Book of the Week. And it's going to be two books that neither one of us have read yet, but both of us are interested in reading. And we wanted to share it because it goes with our theme of werewolves. The first one is going to be And Nobody Knows It But Me. I'll cover there. This is by Megan Stockton. And she told me it was a werewolf book, but not in the way you'd expect it to be a werewolf book. So I don't know what it is about this book, but since I've seen this cover online, I've wanted to read this. This was my number one. I'm not leaving scares without. And I was very excited when she had her table close to me so that I didn't have to go hunt her down and go grab that because I don't know. There's just something about it. It's about oh, yeah, I don't even want to get into it. I don't even know what it's about. I want to jump into it blindly. I never even read the
Yeah.
blurb before. Actually, as I'm sitting there staring at it, I'm thinking, well, I don't even know what this is about. There's just something about it that just called to me. And sometimes the cover will do that. Sometimes just seeing, interacting with the author online
Hmm.
will do that. And I will tell you, listening to her story at the Gross Out contest,
Yeah.
it
That was
sealed the deal for me. I thought her story was fantastic. I thought hers was a story and it was gross, right?
yeah.
Sometimes sometimes the gross out contest is just a list of gross things, and barely put together. But I thought she had a wonderful story, and she got second place.
Yep.
And
Congratulations on
I'm
second place for her
not,
first time doing a gross out
yeah, no, I thought
contest.
she knocked it out of the park. I thought she should
Mhm.
get first place. So I really did. I really thought she won it because I loved her story. And I'm so excited to read this. And I say that it's probably going to be, I've got one or two little things in front of us other than what we have to read for the show, but I think I'm going to dive into it very soon.
Yeah,
Uh,
I picked it up as well from Scares, because I was lucky to meet her. I think Thursday night I met her, before things
Really
started, and
nice,
yeah,
very
she's super
down to
sweet.
earth. Yeah.
Yeah, she was intimidated to meet Daniel Volpe.
Hmm,
So you know me, I'm
I
like,
get
hey
that.
Dan, come on
Yeah, I
over.
know. Hey, you're in luck. His number one fan is here.
Right.
However, that's a nice way of putting it, right? Is that the
Yeah.
that's no? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's perfect. So yeah, no, I thought she left an impression on me, and I'd already had this like impression on this book. So I mean, it just hammered it home. So I was very excited about that. So nobody knows it but me. By Megan Stockton or M Stockton. I don't know. Some of the books say Megan, some of them say M. I'm not sure which way she's going in the future. So, but she has a couple other ones out. D&T just put something out.
Yeah, she has a collaboration with Joshua
Yeah,
McMillan. I
she has that.
forget what the title is.
I know.
Um,
Sorry, I let you guys down. I can't think
yeah.
of it either. And I know she just released something herself with
Is it Pretty
D&T.
Quiet Things? I think she has another book called Pretty Quiet
She might. I
Things.
think the one she just released was called like Bluebird or Blackbird
Blue
or something.
Jay.
Blue
Blue
Jay.
Jay is what was just released from D&T by her.
Yeah, so she's
Um,
got quite a few things out
yeah,
there. But I know the first thing I'll be reading is this one, and
yeah.
I was when she told me that it was a werewolf book, I thought, well, this is fate, right?
Mm-hmm.
This has got to be. I have to do it now. So
Yep.
the other one that we're going to talk about right now is
Under
probably, yeah, there we go, Undertaker's
Undertaker's
Moon,
Moon by
Ronald
Ronald.
Kelly.
Yeah.
But the problem is that when we do the Stephen King, it's supposed to be like tiny, or not tiny, but maybe not as well known. But I mean, this guy's a powerhouse in my
Yeah, he
mind.
is. He's the legend. He's super sweet too.
Oh yeah, he's the
Um,
nicest guy.
yeah,
Nicest guy.
I didn't have any books to buy from him because I think I pretty much have all of his books, but I had brought two copies of Zebra editions of
Ooh,
his
that's cool.
of Hindsight and Bloodkin. I had Zebra copies of those
That's
that I brought for him to sign for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm sure that's cool for him to see some of these older books pop around. And then he always does this. If you buy a signed copy from him, let's see, can I get it without the line? He always gives you an illustration that
Yeah.
is whatever is in the book.
Hmm.
It matches that, which I appreciate. I wish I had that talent to sketch that quickly because he did this
Yeah.
all sitting down. This isn't like he's at home having all the time he needed to do this. He did
Right.
this all while he was doing it. Now, the vibe I'm getting with this book, Cycle of the Werewolf, has it should have been done.
Hmm.
That's what I'm thinking of when I'm reading the back of this, and we're talking, small town, something going on. There's a werewolf, so we will read it, and maybe we'll have to revisit it and at one point and talk about it as a matchup to that. But as I'm looking at it, I started thinking, well, I wonder if this is what Cycle of the Werewolf could have been.
Right.
Even King was actually trying to write a longer narrative, instead of doing whatever it was that he was doing with that one.
Yep.
Which I didn't, we've discussed it. It wasn't the greatest thing ever, but at the same time, it's not the worst thing ever.
Yeah, it was definitely not the worst thing ever.
Um,
So yeah, Scares That Care is actually going to be happening again next year. So if you are interested in attending, it's usually the first weekend of April. So go on to Facebook and join the Scares That Care AuthorCon page and for
yeah, keep up
updates.
with it. Come out there, meet all the people. It was really cool. There's panels. I was on an extreme horror splatterpunk panel that had Daniel Volpe and Tommy Clark and Carver and Bridget and
Christopher Ruffty,
yeah,
I think.
Christopher.
Yeah.
Um, and then we had Aaron in the audience,
Hmm.
and Candace popped in for a minute.
Yep.
Candace Nola. So it was a good panel. It was a full room. It was really fun. You guys saw last week, well, 2 weeks ago, whenever this gets posted, you saw Mike's reading, Mike Enenbach doing a reading. So you get an idea about that. Two authors together, 30-minute reading. They split the time. That's very fun. Um, so we'll have more hijinks probably next year as we get a little more familiar. Because I mean, this was your second time going, right?
Yep.
This was my first time going and then participating on the other side, on the table side, and I didn't know what to expect at all. So I was completely not focused on anything other than just trying to not pass out. So,
Yeah.
so I didn't take pictures. I didn't do, I got like maybe 4 pictures I remember to take myself. People would ask for pictures and I would just say, tag me, please. So
Yeah.
that's
Remember the
how
pictures that I had taken of you, and you're like, how did my sister get these pictures?
yeah, no, I thought that was crazy. I was like, how did she get a picture of me signing a book from a weird angle? Like, is she in the room or something?
Did she
So,
follow me here? And then when
so
I saw him, I'm like, hey, didn't I take those pictures?
yeah, so very cool. I thought that was very nice. I appreciate you taking those pictures. So I didn't even think about it. So, and when I did Texas AuthorCon the first time, I didn't think about any of that stuff either. I think I got maybe 2 or 3 pictures. So
Yeah.
it's just funny how your brain works. You just don't pay attention to stuff. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would have liked to have filmed a little bit of maybe the panel and some other stuff. So maybe next year if I'm on another one or if I do a reading or something of that nature. So, and that right there is insane because I can't even believe I said the word maybe if I do a reading. So,
Right.
that's something I would normally do.
I was very proud of you because you actually spoke on the panel and you didn't just nod, even
The
though
reason
Tommy
I
was
said that, oh, I know,
making
I
fun of
told him, I
you.
said, man, I'm just there to nod because I was losing my voice all
Yeah.
weekend long I don't talk that much normally.
Hmm.
So by the end of that second day, I thought I'm not going to be able to speak. I don't know what I'm going to do. I had halls in, took some super powerful allergy medicine, and I still was losing my voice. So I thought for
Yeah.
sure I wouldn't even be able to speak. So
Yeah.
so I know
I went to the trauma and fiction panel, which was really good.
I have an audio recording of that to listen to.
Yeah,
Um,
it was great.
yeah, I've heard nothing
Um,
but great things.
yeah. And I was, of course, watching helping Allie Sweet watch Marion's baby.
Yeah, that was amazing. That baby traveled a lot.
Yep.
And
Every
always,
time we turned around, somebody else had that baby.
yeah, I was like, huh. So that's the best way to do it, though. I remember how rattling it is to have the baby. It's nice to have a community that's there to look out for and help you and all that stuff.
And that you can
It just
trust with your
right that you can
baby.
trust with your baby, and so
Yeah.
it was nice. It's nice to see the community come together.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good people we didn't get to see because they weren't able to make it, but uh, the people that were there, it was really cool to see everybody and to meet people face to face and see them in real life situations. Because there are some people that on social media you get one idea about, and then you meet them and it's totally different. So
Right.
that's always nice too.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a great time. I thought it was fun. I really enjoyed meeting everybody. I really enjoyed meeting people that new people that
Yep.
came up to me and were interested in the books and stuff. That's always nice, and it was cool to see everybody set up and see all the how everybody does it differently, takes a different approach towards things.
Hmm.
See all the cool things you could do for your table. It was really nice to walk around. Thought Lynn's booth was amazing, with all the clothes and the
Yeah.
purses.
Yeah.
I thought, man, this is such a unique and fun setup. I really did enjoy. I went over there and looked through her book and all that stuff. And I said, none of this is for me, but this is all really cool stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she has some really cool boots. And I have a friend that's big into shoes that I was going to show her because she did some pretty cool designs with shoes too. So, but
Yeah.
like she does the dresses and just all that stuff is really cool the way she does it. And then on top of that, she's got this amazing artwork.
Hmm.
I'm like, man, this is a fun booth because there wasn't that many. I was surprised there wasn't more artwork booths.
Yeah. Yeah. That one of my favorite things about this author con was a bunch of us, I think we were just coming back from somewhere, probably Dunkin' Donuts, and we were in front of the hotel, and John Wayne Comunale and Tony Evans were sitting on John Wayne's balcony playing guitar. So it was like an impromptu concert, and we just stood there in the parking lot,
Yeah,
watching them play and cheering them on and stuff. So I thought that was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
a lot of super talented people doing stuff other than just writing. A lot
Yep.
of fun, a lot of fun stuff going on. So yeah, if you're big into reading and horror and you want to have an opportunity to really get to know some of the writers that you may have fallen in love with, this is a good event because it's really cool. I mean, everybody's at the hotel, and there's a lot of hour activities planned that aren't like so time consuming that you can't meet other people and talk and stuff.
Right.
There's a
Right.
lot of fun stuff. I mean,
Yep.
I walked into the karaoke room for a second looking for somebody, and it looked like people that like that kind of stuff. They looked like they were digging it. And then the gross out was fun, even though they tried to sweat box us out of there.
Oh my gosh, it was so hot in there.
Yeah, I thought my legs started. I could feel my legs cramping up because I
Yeah.
was I was so hot. I was like, if I don't get up now, I'm gonna stand up in the middle of somebody's reading. I felt like I
Yeah.
was gonna just stand up because you know how that is when you get that bad.
Yep.
And it wasn't just the heat; it was we were cramped because I was in the middle of that. So I was in the middle of a row, in the middle of a section area that had it felt like every single human in the place there. So
Yeah.
we
I
were all
was
tight together too. So
Yeah. I was sitting towards the back by the door, and RJ Benetti and his fiance were sitting next to me, and they had their dog Dwight, who's a little Chihuahua.
mhm.
Man, poor Dwight was dying in that heat. I like was fanning him. I'm like, this poor
Yeah,
baby's
you could
hot.
tell.
You need to take him out of here. So they actually ended up taking Dwight out of there before Benetti's reading, and then he came back to do
Which I thought
his.
was very fun too. Benetti's
Yeah,
reading was fun.
yeah.
I liked what he was doing. I thought what he was doing was clever. So
Yeah, so he had this for his story, he had this fart button, right? So when he came back to sit down, he sat on the button.
oh, that's funny. It's
So it
even
just let
better.
out this big fart noise. I was dying. It's like,
Yeah,
oh my
no,
gosh, you're farting over here.
I mean, in my mind, hats off to every single person who did that because I mean that's not easy. You're getting in front of a room of people, some of them strangers, and you're saying the most vilest thing you could think of to try and win a contest,
Yeah.
and you're just out there doing it. Some people obviously were wired for that.
Hmm.
You could tell the ones that it did not bother at all,
Right.
but then you could also, I thought I was more impressed with the ones that it did bother
Yeah.
because you knew, like Megan, they were fighting through the natural instinct of not doing this to a crowded room.
Hmm.
So I thought they were, I thought that should have added more points to what they were doing. I thought, but
Yeah.
it was a very interesting experience because it wasn't something I was looking forward to. It's not my bag. I don't do gross. I do have gross things when I write, but I don't do it for the sake of being gross. It's always
Right.
hopefully to be towards the story. And I wasn't sure what to expect with the gross out, but I thought all of them did a very good job and changed my opinion on the whole thing. So I thought that was cool too. So you got to always remember when we're doing this stuff and you're dealing with people, have an open mind. You know, don't close yourself off to things and go out there and try new things and do. You'll almost always end up having a great time. I know I
Yep.
did.
Yep. For sure.